Hello everyone, a warm welcome to this session. This session is going to be very unique today. So Shakib, our subject matter expert, quant expert, product leader, co-founder, has taken the GMAT very recently, and he has scored a 760 on his attempt. So I thought that okay, even though he's not our student, we can't technically do a success story interview with him, but we can still see from his experiences that what was his experience of taking the GMAT, because considering that he's an expert in the field, like he understands GMAT inside out, and he has been played a very eminent role in the entire product part of GMATWhiz, he can probably come up with certain inferences which some other people might not be able to even get to. So I thought let's do this session and let's understand from his inferences. And this is going to be a very expert point of view. This is not going to be just a student point of view where you just get to know about the kind of questions you got, or like what was the overall feel. This is going to be very different kind of a discussion. And this is going to be really, really helpful in my opinion, especially for GMAT students, but because it will help you in understanding what are the few things that you can utilize and like increase your score. But even if you're not a GMAT student, it's still going to give a lot of insights into the GMAT web, and we're going to take up a lot of common questions and doubts which people ask us on a regular basis. So without any further ado, let's get started. But I'll quickly run you through the overview. So again, what I really thought was that let's do a session and cover different angles to it. So we'll start with a quick intro. Where I'll ask Shakib, why did he actually take the GMAT? So we'll start with that question a little later. But then we'll go to the key exam strategies, like some basic, like in very simple terms, in terms of summary about the key exam strategies that we planned for before the test, basically. We do have a detailed exam strategy related webinar as well, which I will share the link for. But we'll still talk about the key exam strategies that Shakib followed. And then we will go to the verbal section analysis. Even though Shakib is a quant expert, I'm keeping verbal first because I know like many of you would have more questions about verbal. And Shakib actually prepared for verbal like just before he took the GMAT, I guess, right? You prepared properly for
Prepared,
verbal
yeah.
about
For
yeah.
SC, definitely, and for CRRC, just practiced a few questions.
Okay, okay. So we'll actually see from him. So that there might be a bit of a student angle over there as well because he was like new to that thing. So we'll take that up. Then we'll go to the con section analysis. Then we'll talk about some other tips and common questions. So and in fact, this is something which we'll be doing throughout the session as well. Like when you're going to verbal section, con section, we'll burst some myths. Some people will say that you know what LSAT passages are supposedly the best way to actually practice for the test. Some people think that quant section questions are getting tougher, and some people sometimes think that okay, if I get an easy question in between, that means I'm doing poorly. In fact, if I remember correctly, Shakib told me about one of our students who was scoring 740 continuously. The minimum score was 740 in the mocks, and she was taking the GMAT, and one question she saw, which was an easy question in between the test, and she panicked that she felt that she was not doing right. So is that the right thought process? Is that the right thought process to have? So we are going to take up some of these questions, common questions that people have in their mind, and then we are going to open it for a Q&A. But it doesn't mean that you guys can only ask the questions in the end. We actually love if you ask the questions in between. So the reason I'm here, I honestly have nothing, no job to do in this session. This could have been very well taken up by Shakib. The
I
reason
guess
I'm
it could.
here is to, but I think I'm here to ask questions because I sometimes see our audience is very that there
Enthusiastic.
always a doubt while asking a doubt whether I should ask this doubt or not. So trust me, there's no good or bad question. So please feel free to ask anything about us, like about the discussion that we're having. So in the meantime, if you guys can tell us more about yourself, there are about 40 people. So if you can tell us about your stage of GMAT preparation, how much have you prepared for, where are you preparing it from, and what kind of scores you are at present, that will help us in getting some perspective about you as well. Okay, so in the meantime, do introduce yourself in the chat, and I would recommend all of you to do that. That way, we will get to know your skill, and accordingly, we might add a few things here and there. So, in the meantime, you introduce yourself, Shakib. Why don't you tell our users why did you go about taking the GMAT? basically.
Okay, that's a good question. Why did I take the GMAT? So see, the first time so I'll give you a bit of a background. So the first time when I took the GMAT was in 2017, like 5 years back, and it was an old pattern,
Okay.
and the
Mhm.
pattern kind of changed. I think in 2018, where the number of questions reduced. And since
Mhm.
I would say 2020, Piyush, I think even you kind of kept hearing from students, right, that the quant section has become difficult. There are a lot of difficult questions coming. The question that I'm seeing in mocks and official questions, and the kind of question that I'm seeing in the main test, they're very different. I'm seeing weird kind of coordinate questions and those kind of things. And we didn't have anything to validate it, so we were just getting that feedback, and
We were
thankfully no one
thinking
said a
that
lot.
suddenly what has happened to the GMAT, right?
Yeah,
I
exactly,
was even
exactly. I
getting
was like,
questions where people were telling me that there are RC passages coming in a CR question, like which was like,
Uh,
oh, like I don't
yeah,
see.
yeah, exactly. In fact, in verbal, thankfully, people didn't say that it was becoming tougher. But the things I used to hear was that I got a weird SC question. I couldn't understand the stimulus of CR at all. It was quite different, and obviously. Mock was an issue. RC was an issue. Basically, where when people used to see lengthy RCs, they were like, hey, like,
Mhm.
RC is difficult and those kind of things. So I was constantly getting this feedback, and then I think I told you that this in 2020, like let's get done with our GRE launch, and I'll go and take
Take
GMAT,
the GMAT. Yeah.
take the GMAT. It's high time we understand if there's anything different happening in the GMAT space. So yeah, that's the reason to take it. I primarily took it to see whether quant was tough or not, and at the same time, figure out if there's anything funny happening in the verbal section. So yeah, that's the reason. Do you want me to tell you
Perfect.
how I went about taking it also?
No, 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 that is,
Okay.
that is fine. But like just to give you some background, Shakib definitely speaks to a lot of students. I also speak to a lot of students, and Shakib speaks in the capacity of mentor to many students as well. He also tutors people. So when he speaks to students, he gets real-time feedback from them. And obviously, when we are hearing such things that the questions are getting more difficult, that is something which we would love to validate, and that's why he went ahead and took the GMAT. And I think one more reason which Shakib did not mention, maybe he did not feel that is important, is also that sometimes people used to question that, okay, you are a GMAT-whiz expert, right? According to you, you have actually prepared the course, and what is your GMAT score? And people have this, some people have this mentality that for you to be a good tutor, you need to have a stellar score. And Shakir's previous score was a 710. So obviously that 760 definitely also adds credibility. Not that I feel that the score is required. I myself have scored just a 740, which could be a very, very small number for many people. But I don't think that that score is like trademark of you being a great teacher. But I think that still sometimes plays in your mind that, okay, yes, if you have a good score, you can just more confident about that as well. So yeah, so let's get to the next part. Let's talk about the exam strategies basically. In short, like what are the exam strategies that you followed? Like I've just tried to note it down over here. I thought that we'll have this one-on-one discussion and interview format, but then it's always better to have something on the screen so that you guys can also focus on that. Basically,
Yeah.
yeah.
So if I have to talk in order of importance, I would say right preparation would be my number one. Maintaining calm, I think one and two would be maintaining calm and right preparation, and obviously smart skipping was a key strategy. I'm focusing on right preparation a lot because as you said, we talk to a lot of students, and a number of times I have seen people not focusing a lot on various resources, practicing from different places. So one thing which I wanted to do, and as I told you, I prepared for the essay section. I didn't want to use a lot of resource because I wanted to understand. Obviously, I use the with essay section to prepare for SC, but as far as practicing is concerned, I kept it very limited. And obviously, we're going to talk about it later, so I'm not going too much into detail. But yeah, right preparation was one of the key things which is very important. The second thing is maintaining calm because I've seen a number of cases in which students used to come and say, they panicked because they saw easy question, they panicked because they were running out of time, and since I was taking just to see how GMAT has changed. So for me, thankfully there was no pressure, and in my experience what I've seen is if you take the test without pressure, you end up doing well. And smart skipping is something which Piyush, I think we can take up when we are discussing each and every question. But yeah, that was one thing which I,
Yeah.
I, I did keep in mind. Hmm.
So one thing which is very important for all of you to understand is that basically all these three things that you see rely on one single fact that you have to be prepared for the test. Like basically, if you're not prepared and you are there in the session thinking that something magical will happen just because Shakib, who has scored a 760, is sharing his tips, nothing is going to change. Trust me. The first thing which matters most is basically you should be prepared then. You should know that if you give time to a particular question, you can get it right. That confidence is required, and that confidence is something which helps you in maintaining calm during the test, and that composure helps you in smartly skipping the questions which you are not able to understand. And it also requires an understanding of your strength and weakness analysis. Shakib will definitely talk about it. But I have a related question over there. So, Shakib, did you take up any of the mock tests before basically taking
Oh,
the GMAT?
I answered it. So I took
Okay,
the uh
one official and a
so
few
one
GMAT tests.
official and a few is just to fix look at the timing aspect, nothing else.
Yeah, and
In
Shakib
the
took the
official
GMAT
angle,
with
it was
mock.
760 only, by the way. The split was
Sorry?
51-41. Official one, thankfully, was the same score, but the split was
Okay.
different, 51-41.
Okay, so in the mocks, the official mock, you got a 760, but the split was slightly different. And what was
51-41.
the verbal section score in GMATWhiz that you were getting? Like people are asking how close are GMATWhiz mocks to the actual test? Because, and again, I'll ask Saquib to talk only about verbal because quant mock questions were created by him only, so he will be, yeah, he will know the answer. So what about the verbal section?
So I found it pretty close, to be honest. There obviously was a deviation of 2 to 3 points. My score used to usually hover between 38, 39. But then but that was okay. As I told you, I wanted to see whether I can fix my time. Is there any strategy that I need to change, and what kind of mistakes I was making, so that I don't repeat the same in the main exam. I used a completely different strategy. If you want me to talk about it, I'll talk about it in the verbal section. But yeah, somewhere
Sure,
between
sure.
38,
So
39.
we'll get to the verbal section as well, and in depth go in that strategy part. But like, what was the score that you got in the Viz mocks at that point of time in verbal, basically? And what was your
It
score in the
was.
actual test?
I took two of them. One had a 38, one had the 39.
Okay, okay. So your 38 and 39 is what you got in Viz mocks, and your actual score in the test was a 40, if I remember
40.
correctly, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And just to give you an idea, again, this was Shakib's case, but generally when we speak to our students, we take feedback from our students all the time. And generally when we speak to our students, their verbal score tends to be about 1 or 2 points more than what they're getting in the Viz mocks. And their quant score tends to be around the same, like or 1 point higher. That's the usual
Yeah,
thing.
quant is
In
pretty
fact,
close.
pretty close. Huh? In fact,
Pretty close.
Mantavya, who scored a 770 using our course in a couple of months, I'm sharing his interview in case you guys want to check it. We have shared his, in fact, his Vismark score screenshots as well in that interview. He also scored a 750 in his previous attempt, like on the GMAT Vismarks. His actual score was a 770. The quant was exactly the same. Verbal was about 2 points higher. So very similar story to what Shakir had to tell, basically. And please do keep asking questions, guys. We love questions when you ask them. Okay. Biggest flex of my lifetime says get more on the GMAT verbal Viz mocks than Shakir. Okay, good,
Hey,
good,
but
good.
in my defense, I'm not a verbal expert. Okay.
But still scored a
But yeah,
40.
kudos to you.
I
Yeah.
think we have to rethink that part. All right. So let's talk about the verbal section analysis. And Amrusha, we are definitely going to talk about the timing and pacing strategies. That's what we are going to talk about it in depth. So in verbal section analysis, let's talk about this like the verbal section that Shakib had. Like, I wanted to show the entire ESR, but we will show relevant snapshot at relevant points so that they will be able to get a better idea. So, like this is just a snapshot, Shakib. You are free to kind of go ahead and talk about it. Yeah.
Okay, so basically, as far as the three sections are concerned, Piyush has already put up the data points. So I had I got four RCs, one in each section. Three, 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 3, 4, 4, 3 basically was the split of the RC. So the first RC had 3 questions, and 4 questions, 4 questions, 3 questions. SCA I had 13 questions, and CR 9 questions. As far as the difficulty level is concerned, I felt about the second and third quarter difficulty was slightly on the higher side. In the fourth, I did not feel that way, but I was again that was the last leg, and I was kind of rushing through it. But yeah, definitely there were a few good. SC questions, 2 to 3 SC questions, which kind of stumped me. I had to take some time to think about it. But yeah, I had a very clear strategy that if I'm not able to, figure out the answer after, boiling down to two answer options, after even doing the meaning analysis, after finding out the errors, I would simply choose one which I feel was the best and move on. So there were definitely 2 to 3 questions where I faced that issue as far as SC is concerned. In CR, I did not face a lot of issue. There were, I would say, only one question, and that also in the third quarter, which thankfully I got it right, where I had to take, some time. I might have even taken 3.5 minutes to do that particular question. And by the way, there was a glitch also. So while I was
Yeah,
attempting that
that was
question for,
another thing.
yeah, yeah. So for 15 to 20 seconds, there was a glitch. But I did not panic. I used that time kind of, by the way, to think about those two options that I was stuck in. Okay, which one would make more sense? But
And
that
that's a
glitch happened
smart
for
thing to do.
everyone.
Like
Everyone
we
was
can
raising
complain.
their hands. Yeah,
We can complain about that glitch all the time and think about it and waste your time on that. And I think you'll cover that in CR in more detail, like what
in
exactly
more.
you did at that point of time. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But at a high level, that's about it. No surprises as such. Just to answer that question, if you're thinking, did you, Sakib, did you find any different kind of a question or something weird? No, none at all. There were difficult questions, but nothing that I would say was out of the world. And I was like, hey, what is this?
A
I have
totally
to
new
learn about
concept
it.
basically being
Totally no,
tested. Yeah.
no,
So
no.
basically, you're tested on
And I'm
similar
saying this
things
as a
that
student.
you see in official questions and the GMATWhiz platform, like the kind of questions that you generally get on these platforms. You saw similar questions over there.
Exactly. Similar questions. In fact, one of the questions, CR stimulus also seemed very, very, familiar. I was like, seems familiar, same kind of logic of a plan goal question. I was like, okay, I think I might be able to do this one quickly. So happened in one of the questions, but yeah, but
Okay.
rest of them were pretty similar to what you see in official guide, GMAT prep and GMAT was.
That's good to know. And there are questions from Uttam. Uttam says, what material did you use? So again, Uttam, Shakib is like, I would say very strong in quant. So he does not need anything to prepare for that. In fact, he can prepare material for quant. He prepares material for quant and great quality questions over there. For verbal, I
Yeah.
think I'll leave it to him now.
Yeah, so I'll talk about both quant and verbal. Quant, easy. The answer is easy. I kind of since I just wanted to test myself. It's been a long time, as I told you. I've been creating questions, but I still wanted to test myself. So I took a few GMAT Club mocks and saw what kind of score I was getting. But that's about it. For verbal, as I told you, SC I prepared from GMATWhiz. I did official questions, all the official questions, and I did a few GMAT prep questions. And my primary focus was just on figuring out what kind of mistakes I'm making, which again I'll talk about elaborately in the essay section to give you an idea of what exactly do I mean by finding out the exact error. CR. I did a few GMAT prep questions. I did not do any official questions, but again, the reason is that I was involved in creating the CR course also, so I had seen quite a few questions of OG, so I didn't want to try them because it did not make much sense. RC, I was, from my CAT days, I've been, performing decently in it. So I just went through the types, like what kind of questions, the function questions, primary purpose questions, just to refresh a little bit from the course. But that's about it. Did a few, I would say, I think about 8, 10 RCs. Found one or two kind of mistakes that I was making, and but that's about it. Nothing else. I
Perfect,
hope that
perfect.
answers your
Ishan, we're
question.
going to talk about Shakib's timing as well. So if Ishan has that question, we're coming to that.
Yeah.
Don't worry about that.
It's a weird
But
strategy. I will not recommend it. I'll tell you, but I would not recommend it. Yeah.
no, we'll see, we'll see, we'll
Yeah.
see. That's not the problem. Let's not jump to that conclusion because I like a lot of things about the strategy that you follow. So definitely,
Mhm.
we'll
Mhm.
talk about that. But just to summarize the entire thing, so Shakib has been instrumental in like creating the entire quant things that you see. So he did not have to prepare a lot for quant. He used GMAT Club test because he had prepared the GMAT quiz questions himself, so he could not use the GMAT quiz quant questions. He primarily focused on sentence correction preparation, like which he did using GMATWhiz, where like the sentence correction part of the course was created by mostly Sunita ma'am. And RC also he focused on a few areas as he mentioned. So that's where he
Mhm.
primarily focused at the time of this preparation. Now let's get to the verbal sectional results overall. Okay, now what I want you guys to focus on, and this is a snapshot of Shakib's ESR for verbal. We'll show you the snapshot of quant as well, as and when required. So Ishan, this is to answer your question. The timing, okay, this does not show the timing, but I'll actually have the timing data also on the other side. So overall, if you see, Saquib had 91 percentile in CR, 85 percentile in RC, and 85 percentile in SC also. And you see the accuracy, the number of mistakes which I'm showing you on the right side along with it. Now, I've shown these numbers. You have the percentile in front of you. You have the number of mistakes and accuracy in front of you. I'm not telling you the inference myself. I want you guys to infer based on this information. What is that I want to tell you? Okay. So this is a quiz question for you guys. Let's see who comes up with the right answer. I'm showing you some data points. I'm showing you the percentile score, which is there in the ESR. On the side, I'm showing you the number of mistakes Shakib made, which is available in another part of the ESR itself. And I'm also showing you the accuracy in those sections. Okay. Karna says CR holds the least importance. How do you infer it from this data, Karna? I'm not like, okay. Maybe because you are comparing 91 percentile 85 and taking the average and seeing that it is less than 90, but still the score is 90th percentile, probably that's what you're looking at. That's a good inference, definitely a very good inference, but other data points. Okay. Sambhavna, in the meantime, Shakib has a question. She says, is OG questions enough to tackle hard questions on GMAT? What is your take on that?
My personal opinion would be you might have to do a few GMAT prep questions also. And OG won't be enough just to answer that question. And I'm
You
assuming you're
answered
asking
it in
for
diplomatic
verbal.
fashion, to be honest.
No, so see, for both quant and verbal, for quant, definitely OG is not enough. Definitely, you would need more than OG, that's for sure. As far as verbal is concerned, I would put it like this way: it depends. There are a good number of difficult questions in OG also. But for me, what worked was getting a little bit of more exposure from GMAT prep questions. So yeah, personally, I felt you might need to do. I feel that you might need to do a few GMAT prep questions also. Like I'm
That's
talking
good,
in
and
terms of
I concur on
official, I'm
that.
not, saying that you have to do GMATWhiz questions. If you are just focusing on official questions, then official source, these are the two things that you need to look at.
So I see just two responses in the chat on the question. There are about 60 people live with us. So either it is a very difficult question that I've asked, or you guys are
It's
being
kind of
still being
open-ended,
shy.
I think. Even I'm curious to know the
Okay.
answer.
Okay, open-ended. Okay, okay, very good. I actually see the right answer from a bit of a right answer from Rohan, I would say, and a bit of it from Ishan as well. So Rohan says accuracy isn't the most important factor. SC versus RC, for example, like you see the accuracy difference, you see the same percentile. Great. Now this is a difficult inference to me. I honestly did not expect anyone to come with this inference. This inference I am able to make because I look at almost four new ESRs on a daily basis. And I've been doing that for the last 3 years. You can calculate yourself how many ESRs I would have looked at in my life. Okay. Now, after looking at all these ESRs, what I concurred is, and I hope no official GMAT guy is watching this video. So basically, this percentile is BS in many cases. I don't see any logic behind them in many cases. There is a bit of a logic, but these are not really always reliable. You look at the number of mistakes made in RCR. It's just one mistake in the entire test. And you look at the number of mistakes in RC and SC. Like the number of mistakes are way apart. The accuracies are way apart. The percentage should be different. Why am I telling you all this is because sometimes when we do ESR analysis, we take this percentiles on face value, but it's not the right thing to look at, basically. I understand that it has to do, as Isan has said, that mistakes on hard level SC questions. But Shakib, you tell me, like, did you make all 4 mistakes in SC in 1 quarter? Because hard questions always come
No.
at the end. No, right? In fact, your ESR is telling you the same. You made 2 mistakes in the first, 2 mistakes in the second, and 3 in the last. So you did not make all mistakes in SC in the 1 quarter. So obviously you did not make mistakes in only hard questions. That's a data point that we have. Now with that data point, if you look at 66% accuracy and you look at 85th percentile, doesn't make sense. But it's difficult sometimes. So you should not just be looking at, what I'm trying to say is you should not just be looking at these percentile scores. You need to deep down and understand what are your weak areas. And Shakib knows that in SC, he was comparatively weak compared to the other two. He definitely did well, but he was relatively weak compared to the other two, which your other data points are telling you very clearly. Okay, so that is something which is very important. In case you need any help with your ESR analysis or any help with your GMAT preparation, please feel free to reach out to our team. I can definitely help you with that. So I've shared this link in the chat. This is the link which you can actually use to connect. But what I'm trying to say is that it is ESR has a lot of complex data points, and you cannot take everything on face value. You have to combine multiple pieces of information to come to the right inference. So please keep that in mind. Now let's move on to the first section of verbal. Let's talk deep dive into the critical reasoning part. How did you feel, Shakib, overall about the critical reasoning section?
Okay, so as far as the critical reasoning section is concerned, as I mentioned before, I did not find a lot of weird questions. I had the usual assumption family questions, weekend question, strengthen question. I had a few a flaw question. In fact, in my third quarter, I had a bold phase. So, when I got to go bold phase, I like pause for at least for 10, 15 seconds. Like, okay, am I doing well? I might be doing well, maybe. So, but yeah, but that's about it. No other, as I said, weird kind of question that I got in the CR section. Um as far as as I've already told you that I'm comfortable with CR. My average accuracy to solve a CR question has always been between 1.5 to 2.5. Like if it's a easy and medium question, I'm able to solve it within 1.5 minutes. Most of the hard questions used to take about anywhere between 1.5 to 2.5. If I'm taking more than 2.5, I had a clear understanding that I might have missed something. Either I missed something in the stimulus or I'm missing something in the option. That was a clear indication. So usually I used to take a call very quickly. Do I want to go back, or did I read any option quickly? Did I discard something? So those kind of strategy I kind of used to narrow down and get the answer quickly in the if I'm taking more than 2.5 minutes. uh, and as I already mentioned, that there was a technical glitch in one of the questions, during which I did not panic at all. Um, as far as preparation is concerned, CR, as I told you, I did GMAT prep questions. I did not touch LSAT. Somebody, I think, asked in the chat box whether did you do any LSAT questions. In fact, some
We'll
of my
actually
students also.
cover that up also. Like
Okay.
I have
Okay.
that as in the website itself.
Okay. Okay.
Just to like summarize, basically what Shakib said. First and foremost thing is that he was aware that it is his strongest suit out of the all three areas of verbal, and he was very aware that he takes on an average about 2 minutes per question, which obviously means that in a medium question he can solve it in 1.5 minutes. A hard question he might take 2.5 minutes also. So he knew that this is the range. And that's why I said in exam strategies that you have to be very aware of, you have to be well prepared and you have to be aware of
Sure,
your
sure.
strengths, weaknesses in there, basically. So this is where like the right strategy comes into picture. So since he was aware about the time that he takes, the moment he spent 2.5 minutes, like he used to take a call at 2.5 minutes. I remember in my test, I took a call on CR questions in 2 minutes, 45 seconds or 3 minutes, in fact. So that was my thought process because I was not that strong at quantum, like SCR. My strongest suit was SC at that point of time. So we like took a call at that point that this is the break point basically. If you don't get it right at this point, you're actually better to guess it. And in some cases, we are seeing people getting stuck. They think, okay, you know what? I've spent 3 minutes on this question. How can I leave it midway? So Shakib, did you have that temptation on any question?
Temptation to leave.
Not to leave. Like you spent two
Tempted,
minutes, 2.5 minutes on the
temptation
question.
not to leave. No, no, no. So basically,
Temptation to leave.
after solving the after like a lot of people get after spending 2.5 minutes, they want to spend another 1 minute, 1.5 minute to give, because they've invested time and they want to actually try and solve that question. In my case, actually, I did not do that. Thankfully, it didn't happen for a lot of questions. Also, as I told, there was only one question where I might have taken about 3.5 minutes, but in most of the questions I took a strong call. Okay, I feel if this is the answer, I used to mark it and move on.
Perfect, perfect. And the second thing, which is very important, and this is something which we did in our research. This was done, I think, in 2018 and 2019, 2018 and 2019 beginning. And we looked at all official questions, and we saw that 70% of all the official questions are from the assumption family. Now, I'm extending the assumption family to include inference in it as well. So, what I mean by assumption family is, and then we can evaluate assumption and inference. Out of all these, like if you want me to break down the 70% further, around 32%, like out of the entire CR lot, is from strengthen itself. That's the most common
Correct.
type. Second most common is assumption and weekend, which are equally important. The third most commons are evaluate and inference.
Even
And what I wanted to focus on here was that Saquib, so one flaw question, one boldface question. There were 9 CR questions that were served to him. The rest of them, 7 by 9, which what will the numbers are here? 7 by 9, 77% approximately,
20
right?
to 78, yeah, 78%, yeah,
Uh,
77%.
so around 77, 78% questions were from the assumption family itself. So what was something we identified in 2018 and 2019 beginning still
It's
stands
still the
true.
same.
This is the same. Okay. And the third thing is technical glitch happened. Shakib used to his advantage. He did not start thinking about, okay, what is going to happen? Is my the computer going to restart or not? Because he knew that that's not in my control. If it happens, it happens.
Perfect.
He started thinking about the question that he was solving, and he utilized that. Even though it was 15, 20 seconds, he utilized that time basically
Mhm.
overall. Now, should you solve this at CR? What is your viewpoint on that, Shakib? Did you see
Honestly
any
speaking,
question which
you
was that difficult?
don't
Yeah.
need to do LSAT questions. As I told you, I've done like I haven't even touched a single LSAT question ever. All I've done is official guide. That also like 2021 we revamped it, I think, right? So that was the time when we I did official questions, and this time I just did GMAT prep questions. And again, just to answer, since you're talking about assumption family, I primarily focused a bit on evaluate questions because I knew that those are the questions where I take most time also. Strength and weaken assumption was pretty, and inference was I was okay with it. So primary focus was on evaluate to see how I'm doing it. That's all. But you
Perfect,
won't need
perfect.
any other resource.
And in fact, if you look at the number of questions, like in the GMAT, if like those of you who are GMAT students, there are 100 plus CR questions in the course itself. I think Shakib can give a better idea because it was involved in that. This
Correct,
number
roughly,
should
yeah,
be close to
ballpark.
150,
Correct.
basically, I feel. And then in the GMATWhiz quizzing platform, which we call as Whiz Quiz, there are about 200 plus CR questions. So you have 300 plus additional questions of CR, and all of these are high quality questions, by the way, where you have like very, very similar to the kind of questions you get on GMAT. And then official guide has 125 questions. Like we do provide official guide solutions in our course as well. So in our methodology as well. So that also is an extension of it. And then in GMAT prep, like you have 500 plus ER questions. So you do the
That's a lot.
math, that's a lot, right? There
That's a
are
lot.
1,000 quality GMAT style questions. So why would you want to waste time on LSAT, which is something you are not going to do? As well.
Like, so if you're done with all of this and if you're still asking this question whether you should use any other resource, then that means you're not analyzing your mistakes properly. You're just focusing on quantity. You just keep on practicing question with the hope that one day you will improve in CR, and that is not the right strategy, honestly.
Because you're actually spending more time on something that you should not be spending that much time on. Because it is like basically someone is preparing for GMAT and they're solving cat style questions.
Correct. So since we were talking about this, like one thing which I would add is like when I was doing CR questions, even when I was analyzing the mistake, do you have a Piyush, do you have a slide on analyzing mistakes post this? If not, I'll talk about it
Not
here
not
only.
really on
Yeah.
analyzing
So
mistakes. Yes, please
basically,
go ahead.
when I'm talking to students also, when I ask them what kind of mistakes are you making in CR, did you try and see exactly, in which category does your mistake fall? So you might not be reading the stimulus properly. You might be skipping an answer option. And I'm talking about these two because these two are something which I do. I read very quickly sometimes, so I end up missing certain important information. But rarely, if I'm making a mistake, I'm doing it because of this only. But let's say if I'm making another mistake, so I had a very clear idea that there are times when I might end up choosing a distortion option if I think a lot. If I go above and beyond and start connecting a number of things,
Overthinking
and I'm
basically.
overthinking. If I end up doing that, then I choose distortion option. So had a very clear idea what kind of mistakes I make and what do I need to avoid when I'm solving a question. So if I'm stuck between two options, I know that I have to ask myself, am I overthinking about it? Am I reaching? If that is the case, I need to drop that option, move on to the one that seems more realistic. So this is one problem that I've seen with students. If they can spend time and understand exactly where the core mistake is, then they would not need a lot of questions to practice on. They can identify it quickly and fix it pretty easily.
Very valid point. In fact, I think the most important part is basically focus work on your weak areas. Like instead of just randomly doing practicing, self-awareness is very important. And in case you're not able to understand that yourself, I think since we are experts, we have also developed a certain skill in understanding the gaps. And obviously, when we are analyzing it for ourselves, also we can do that. But it is important as a student, if you're not able to do that yourself, you should come to someone and actually get some advice on it, but at
Correct.
least get that identified. And at GMATWhiz, we provide mentor to all the students. In fact, some of our students don't use that mentorship related service that we provide. But I recommend all of you who are GMATWhiz students and watching this, please make sure that you schedule a call every couple of weeks with your mentor. They will be able to give you additional advice and helping you in understanding how to do focused effort. All right. Now, I have one question from Karan. Karan says, why did he only get 9 CR questions? Now, the part of why only GMAT knows, but honestly, basically, the split, I also used to feel, honestly, Karna, I agree with you that I also used to feel that SCCR and RCR are equally important, but that is not the case. What we have analyzed and looked at is that out of 36 questions, there are 30 questions which are scored on GMAT Verbal. Most likely, like when I say most likely, I'm 99.99% certain about this. I can't be 100% certain because GMAT does not reveal this data. But most likely, out of 30 questions which are scored, 8 are from critical reasoning, 10 are from reading comprehension, and 12 are from SC. So SC ends up being the most important area. And if you are weak in it, then it becomes a big trouble for you. And RC also, I would say, is equally important as SC, even though it has two less number of questions. But since those questions are consecutive, the adaptiveness of the test actually goes against you if you happen to kind of get this. Okay. So I have a related question. Is asking, is OG enough in terms of number of questions to be done? Diksha, we have answered this question earlier. So OG has a decent number of questions. You can see over here is 125. The only problem with this is that out of this 125 CR questions in OG, there would be hardly 20 questions which will be considered as hard questions. So if you are targeting a 700 plus on GMAT, with 20 hard questions, you are not going to make it for sure. So you need a better mix of difficulty levels as well, which might be required.
And plus, I would also add
And
that usually we use official guide questions, to solidify our understanding. So once you're done with official guide, you would need a place to uh, to figure out basically whether you're doing really well or not. Because while doing official guide questions, we usually recommend not to time yourself. So official guide can definitely be used. And as Piyush mentioned, obviously there are not a lot of hard questions, so you need exposure to hard questions also. So both these factors combined, I think you would need extra questions.
And like I just I thought of one more important point I would like to highlight to all of you. Now, what is enough? The definition of enough is also subjective. Please understand that. In my entire preparation, I took the GMAT 4 years back. In my entire preparation, I did not even exhaust all the official guide
Official
CR
guide
questions.
question.
I did not exhaust them, but I was still able to score well. Like I did not score a stellar number, but it was I think 83 percentile in CR. And the thing is, it is also about how you utilize the questions which are available with you. It is not just about solving questions. Some people will just, you know what, in the very beginning of the preparation, they will get the official guide and they will start solving the questions and then waste those questions, basically. So it is important that you first learn the right method of solving questions and then utilize quality questions. That part is very, very critical and should not be uncritical, basically. All right, so let's get to RC. Sakib, you wanted to add anything on over here?
No, I think that's enough. Yeah.
Okay, okay. So let's talk about RC. I have at the
Their
right
timing
time,
was
Arpit
also
has a
fine. So I
question.
managed my timing well also. So it was about 2 minutes only, I think, in the ESR for CR. So just wanted to add that.
Right, right. I'm gonna show that timing. In fact, in a couple of slides also. So I have a question from Arpit. So Arpit, we are gonna answer that for you. So Shakib, how was your RC? Like I've just written the notes, snapshots over there from your notes itself. But yeah, let's talk about this.
Okay, so the first RC I got after I think I was done with 4 or 5 questions, and it was a pretty 300 word passage short. So at that point, I thought for 5-10 seconds, am I getting easy question? This looks too short for as far as RC passage is concerned. But yeah, let's talk about the length first. The length, in fact. Of my 4 RCs, only one of them was huge, literally 5 paragraphs, which came again in the third quarter. But my first RC and the second RC was roughly about 300 words, I would say, 2 paragraphs, 3 paragraphs type. And last RC was a short one, thankfully. So I did have a little bit of time around that.
Okay. So you did not
Passages,
have two long passages, like you had three short
no.
ones and one long one. Okay, okay,
Yeah. So it would be one long. It wouldn't be too long,
okay.
actually.
Okay. My
So I
bad
had
then.
one. Yeah.
It's just
Yeah, it
correction
was
over
it was
here.
just one long passage, 200-300 words, and one was I would say decent size. Uh, and again, I did not get any business passage. I don't remember the topics of each, but yeah, the fifth one was kind of based on different opinions. It was a little abstract, but apart from that, the remaining 3 RCs, if you spend time, if you give about 3 minutes, and if you, even if you want to spend at least I think in 3 minutes you should be able to reach those three passages that were given. I don't think you would need more than three, maybe four, if you're trying to be extra careful. But in my case, I think ended up taking around that amount of time. I spent a time on my long passage. I did not panic, by the way. I
So
thought, okay,
let me come to that part
okay.
separately. But
Mhm.
regarding this topic of genre of passages, so Shakib, I was hearing from a lot of students that nowadays science passages and economic passages are not coming about. That was another thing.
Uh,
I'm not sure if you heard that or not,
uh,
but there were many people who were
um,
telling that.
Okay, no, I don't think I heard something like that. The only thing which I heard was that passage was difficult. Okay, I couldn't comprehend one of the passages, so that was one common theme which I was kept on hearing from my mentees. But I did not find a business passage because that is something which would have been easy to intuitive to do. But apart from that, I had a science passage. I had the remaining two was I think a more like a generic kind of opinion
Abstract
based
or humanities,
abstract,
basically,
basically.
those
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
passages.
those kind of
So overall,
passages.
like I remember 4 years back when I took the test as well, I had economics-based passages and about three passages which are abstract, like history, American history, something which they are in love with, obviously. So
Mhm.
there is something about American history always, I guess. So and there are two more passages which are around humanities. So I don't see a lot has changed since then. But yeah, like you will be lucky if you have one science and one business passage in the same test, probably. So
Mhm.
that's
I would
that's
be
that's
pretty
something
happy
which
if
I
I would
look
have got
forward.
that.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's something which is there. And another thing that people are not getting insanely long passages, like there's just one passage Shakib also got, which was
They're
a
just
500
one
word
year.
passage. Right.
Mhm.
So how did you tackle that lengthy passage? Let's break it down. Let's break it down in terms of what time did you spend on reading the passage? Because sometimes when people see a 500 word passage, they panic first, five, six paras, they will start skimming through it and doing all of that. So what was your approach,
Okay,
basically?
so honestly, for the first 2 seconds, I looked at it and I scrolled. I was like, okay, huge. Okay, no problem. It's a huge passage. So, but I then remembered something which you also said in your strategy webinars. You know, if you're getting a difficult passage, good chance that you're getting hard questions. You should spend time on it. And thankfully, I had a decent amount of time. Obviously, I'll talk about the timing strategy a bit later, but I had time on my hand. So I was like, oh, I need to do this well. So let me go through the passage, end to end. I will not skip anything. I'll try my best to understand, even if it takes me time. If I have, but I'll make sure that I understand it. What's the main crux of it? So I think I might have spent slightly more than 3 minutes on it because since it was slightly huge. But then I went to the question. Out of the four questions, surprisingly, two were really easy. If you understood the passage, you might not even have to go back to the passage to answer the question at all. Okay, two of them, obviously, one of them was an inference-based question. One was a word highlighted in the passage, and then you had to go back to that part and understand why the author had said that highlighted word. What was the meaning of that? So there were just only two questions that I had to actually go back a bit to verify whether in the inference question or like whether these things have actually been said or not, whether I can infer this thing actually or not. That was the only two questions where I might have taken time. But on average, I think I was able to complete that within 8 minutes. I don't think I would have taken more than that, even lesser, I think, because of the two questions which ended up being easy.
Okay,
But I did not panic also.
understood.
When I saw the easy question, I was like, I didn't think I'm getting easy questions. I might not be, doing well. So those thought did not come in my mind at all while I was doing that RC passage.
Understand. Understand that's something which is in fact like visible in your ESR as well, timing wise. So if you can see the timing over here, Shakib spent on an average about 1 minute 50 seconds on RC questions on an average. So what you need to take out of this is that even if you have a very tough passage in front of you, you should not panic first. You should read that passage properly because if you don't read that passage properly, there is a high chance that you might have to come back to the passage again and then increase your time.
Exactly.
Basically.
That's true.
And then
That's true.
you will at least and one more thing probably which I always tell students is that if you have a lengthy passage, most likely there are going to be a couple of questions which are going to be very straightforward. So
Straightforward.
you will get those questions, you'll save time over there, so you can see. And none of these RC questions Shakib skipped, right? You did not skip any question in RC, right? You
No,
spent
no,
time on
no
all the
skipping
questions.
any questions. In fact, I spent time on all questions. I had about, I think, 20, 25 seconds left at the end. But I rushed, so I shouldn't have. But yeah, I had about 20 seconds, I think, at the end.
Perfect, perfect. So this 150 that you see is the actual time. It was not like okay, he was spending 2 minutes on an average, and then he did not spend any time on a question and then he gets it. So this is the actual time that you kind of see. Okay, Ishan is asking, can you break down the timing of reading and answering questions? So I think Shakir, he did break it down, but if you want to add anything on top of that.
Roughly, it's like if it's a short passage, it usually doesn't take more than 3 minutes, I would say. The last passage, the fourth one, I did pretty quickly because it was short, just two paragraphs. So it did not. It might have taken me 2.5 minutes. But as far as answering questions is concerned, it depends. But mostly, I try to answer it within a minute. Worst case, 1 minute, 30 seconds, 40 seconds. If it's a difficult question, but overall, if it's a short RC, then 6 minutes, 6.5 maybe. If it's a hard one, then you can stretch it to 8.
$8 to $9 basically.
Yeah, 8 to 9 minutes, not more than that.
And one more thing, Ishan, please make sure understand it this way that this is what we are talking about on the day of the test. And Shakib was in initial phases of that he was probably not reading a short passage also in 3 minutes. Like, what was the usual time when you were like learning that?
I think I used to take, in fact, let me tell you, give me one sec. Uh, Okay, my last ESR timing is also a bit less, so let's not get that into it. But yeah, as far as reading is concerned, long passages, solving long passages might take me about like 2 to 3 years back, might be 9 minutes or 10 minutes. I read a lot, maybe that is why I end up, it was slightly easy for me. And as I said, that RC was something that we used to do in CAT. Yeah, if you ask about 2010, 11, then I used to take a lot of time. So if you want to
Yeah.
compare with that, then definitely I had a hard time during CAT days. Who's going to read such a long RC pass? It's going to take a lot of time. Yeah. So that's definitely true.
You
In
don't want to
2010,
remember those days, like
I
those
don't
10
want to
was,
remember
like, yeah. But anyway, let's talk about Arpit's questions. So Arpit is asking what would you say about the nature of RP questions? Were
that.
they similar to what we have in GMAT? This
See,
quiz.
difficult to say when you mean by simply you can understand. All these passages are different, but as far as the structure is concerned, the type of questions are concerned, I think I mentioned earlier there were no surprise. It was the same, run-the-mill inference question, primary purpose question. Why is the author? What did the author mean when he said this? And these kind of questions are there on Whiz quiz. So if that is what you're asking, then yes, if you solve questions from Whiz quiz, you'll definitely be exposed to these kind of questions. And if you do them well, and if you, even if you understand the kind of mistakes you're making well, you're making there, then you would not repeat those in the main exam.
Perfect. Okay. Good. And I think you did not probably cover this, but in general, what by design have done is that we have kept our RC questions slightly more
Slightly
difficult.
difficult.
So
Mhm.
yeah. So if
That's
we are calling it a 700 level question, that's a 750 level question, and
as if
if it
you're
is a
getting four
650, it's a
four all
750.
four questions correct in RRCs, then you'll definitely ace
Yeah. You'll
RCs
probably
in
get
the main.
everything correct in
Correct, correct.
GMAT.
That's for sure.
That
That's for
is
sure.
perfect.
Mm.
Perfect. So I think let's talk about SC. I actually wanted to cover quant as well in this session, but as we are
Mhm.
proceeding, I think we should do another session on quant because you would have a lot of things to talk about in quant, and I don't want to take this session beyond an hour. So, what do you
Sure,
say?
not a
Should we do
problem.
another session on quant?
I think you should ask. Completely okay with it, but do you
What do you
want
guys
to?
think? Like, should we do a detailed session on quant and maybe Shakir can even show us? Like, obviously, he's a quant expert. He has a much more better clarity about quant. So, what do you guys say? I just want to see yeses if I get more than what 5 yeses. I think because people are not just like people are maybe just
So to clarify the question,
introverts.
do you, what does
Yeah,
yes mean?
I need people to say yes if they want us to do a detailed session on quant separately. Like that we can do, basically. Yeah, another dedicated session on quant. Let's see how many yeses do we get. But let's get to sentence correction part
Sentence correct.
very quickly. Like Shakir, like, what was your
Mhm.
observation about sentence correction?
Okay, so as already mentioned that SC wasn't my strongest suit. Okay, so I had to come up with a strategy where I thought, okay, so let's put it this way, that while I was preparing for SC and when I was thinking about the verbal section in general, um, I was thinking in this way, okay, if I want to get a 40 or 40 plus, how many mistakes can I afford, or how much do I need to work hard on the SC section, because I knew CR and RC was kind of taken care of. So what I realized was that and based on all the ESRs that we have seen, that if you're making 6 to 7 mistakes, then and if you're not making them, again, there's a conditional type. Please remember, if you make 6 mistakes in the first 2 quarter, there's you might not get a 40.
Yeah,
But yeah, if you're
don't.
yeah, yeah. But if your mistakes are kind of spread out, 2 mistakes in the first quarter, 1 mistake in the second quarter, and like that, then you may end up getting definitely a V40 or more than that. So here's what I thought. Let's say if I get 14 questions in SC. Um, even if I get 2 to 3 weird questions, because it used to happen, when doing mentorship sessions, students used to bring very abstract SC questions. They're like, why is this why is this the answer option, or how would I remember this? And I was like, I can understand, I empathize with you. It's a difficult question. So my thought process was pretty simple. I have 14 questions. Even if I get 3 really weird questions, I was hoping I won't get more than 2 to 3. But even if I get it, what's the worst that can happen? I'm going to get those wrong, right? That's the worst that can happen. And as far as my timing was concerned, my timing was kind of sorted. Thankfully, easy questions I used to solve within 40 to 60 seconds. Medium time was also fine, between 1.5, and hard. Again, the same like CR. If I'm spending more than 2 minutes, I might have missed something out there, so I have to take a call. What do I need to do? Uh, so with this strategy in mind, I kind of focused on the major topics, understood each of them pretty well. My timing kind of seemed sorted. On an average, it was hovering between 1.5 to 1 minute 40 seconds. So I was okay with it. I was like, okay, this is fine. I don't need to worry about it. Even if I make 2 to 3 RC mistakes, I'm fine. So when no the kind of question that I got on SC, to be honest, there were only 3 questions where I might have spent a little bit extra time, more than 1.5 minutes. In one question, in fact, I did spend a little bit extra time. One was a modifier based question. So and again, I had a good clarity of the kind of what my strengths, what are my weaknesses. Like I think I told you, Piyush, and I hate ing questions, modifier questions. I don't like them a lot. Or
Yes.
idiom based questions, because endless idioms, how many do I need to learn? And one was a fully underlined question. The fully underlined question was where I spent a decent amount of time. Modifier, again, I did not spend a lot of time, but it took me time to kind of decide which one could be the correct answer choice. Idiom, again, I tried to eliminate all the errors that I could. Was left with two. When I went
And
by
it
my
was
ear.
an idiom. Yeah.
Yeah, it was an idiom. So I went by what I, how would I say it? So that was the only thing which I did it. I think on these 3 of them. Apart from that, I did not face any problem. They were usual comparison-based questions, and those, in fact, were you'll find similar questions in OG also. When you're comparing two actions, comparing two people, what should you use, such as like those kind of things
Okay.
were there, pretty
Okay.
straightforward. In fact, if anybody comes and says, no, this saw a weird question, I would not. One or two, it's fine. But if they say the SC section was weird, it would be hard to believe that's the case. Um, so yeah, so 3 questions. I kind of did not spend a lot of time. If I was and as my strategy was pretty clear. Um, in fact, there were 1 or 2 questions where even if I was stuck between the answer option, I also knew that I get a lot of hard questions wrong, because and again, GMAT which teaches that you have to focus on the meaning. At the end of the day, if both the options seem correct, if you're not being able to
Right.
find a mistake, just go and see which one makes more sense. So I had 1 or 2 questions like that where I ended up between two options, seeing both of them okay. Then I kind of thought, okay, let me look at the meaning, and if both of them make
You're
sense,
able
then
to
I'll choose
find
something.
the
If I don't find anything, I'll still choose one which I've correct. But if I find, obviously, I'll end up marking the answer. So my strategy regarding SC was like this: if I get 3 incorrect, I don't care. Um, and obviously, I was pretty sure that it doesn't happen, right? You get 3 back-to-back hard questions or 3 back-to-back weird questions. That's not going to happen. Um, in fact, I don't think we covered this a lot, but there were a few questions in between which I felt were pretty easy. So when we talk about
That I thought of covering in Quant, but we since
quant,
we're doing
okay,
another session
huh,
basically, and I see actually about 10 plus yeses.
okay,
So
okay,
we'll be actually doing another session on Quant in depth. We'll cover that part. That was a very
okay,
interesting question, and we'll not just keep it in Quant. We will also talk about some commonly asked questions and answer them as well. So
correct, okay,
all
okay. So
of
I'll
you
leave
who are
that.
there, all of you, so let's leave that for now. So all of you who are here, please subscribe to our channel. We'll most likely have this session next Wednesday. I'll just confirm with Shakib he doesn't have any other appointment. But if he is available, we'll do it the same time next week. Basically, that will be our episode 2, and we'll cover the quant related thing and the other topics over there as well. So I think
In fact,
Arjun,
this
my
is an
voice should
interesting
be
one. You should
audible.
attend the next one. This
Uh,
difficulty thing is an interesting thing which I wanted to talk about. But yeah, okay, we'll do that in the
and they'll
next
actually
session.
show it to you on ESR as well. Like I'll actually show an ESR snapshot, which will prove that you can get some easy questions in between, and you should not panic, basically. And there are a lot of other things that we'll talk about in terms of the
I'll show a
quant
few variations.
usual.
I obviously I cannot show the actual question, but I'll show you a few variations, and I'll ask you, do you think this is easy, or do you think this is difficult? And you'll get a very clear idea that if you get something like this in the middle, you should not panic at all.
Very valid point. And just one sentence correction, one thing which I want you to focus on. So Saquib made four mistakes in history. Three of them were guesses. We knew that he could get them wrong. But even from his weak area, he was self-aware. He knew that if he can tackle some questions properly and calmly, he can get them right. And that was what he was able to achieve. So yes, so please stay tuned for the next week's session. I'll wrap it up with a quick intro about GMATWhiz. Those of you who don't know about us, we believe in personalization. We go to the extent of saying that we are world's only truly personalized course, and that's what we believe in. We are a very dedicated team. I know I'm boasting about myself on a live YouTube video, but I feel that we have done enough. We kind of do that all the time. And I really take pride in that, that all of our team members, you see two of the co-founders talking about this, talking about their journeys, talking about taking the GMAT just to understand if what the students are telling are really right or not, right? So we went out of the way, prepared, thought of it, and took the test. So we really believe in personalization of the course, and that's what we achieve in GMATWhiz through three important things: a personalized study plan for every single student. If you want to study, you will not get the same course which is served to every Tom, Dick, and Harry. You will have a course which is actually focused on your weaknesses. And basically, you have real-time improvement modules in the second phase of your preparation. You will identify where you're going right or wrong, and you will have proper dedicated mentors with whom you can connect every couple of weeks to get insights into how you can improve your score further. And in fact, this is the dedicated mentorship is something which has given us a lot of input. Because we are talking about mentees all the time, the feedback that we get from them, and we go an extra mile to help students out and get them their results because we feel that it's a win-win scenario. You get the result, you win, you get into a good school, we also win because that's the best way to actually market our product, get the best results out. So that's what we believe in. And through this personalizations, I'm proud to say that till December 2021, I'm showing you the data. But even today, if you look at the data on GMAT Club, this is the data which is captured by GMAT Club, not captured by us. It's available on GMAT Club website. You will see that GMAT is the highest score improvement. Right now, our average score improvement for international students means non-native speakers, people outside of US and Canada, is at 98 points. And if you look at target tester, it is about 85 points, Bagosh is at 72 points, EGMAT is at 72 points, and Platform is at 66 points. That's primarily because of the personalization that we do. And I really take pride in that. In case you want to check out our trial version, you can click on this link and check out our free trial as well. And in case you want to connect with us, understand how we can help you with your score improvement, you can schedule a one-on-one discussion with me. I'll quickly send the link for that as well. So if you want to understand how the GMATWhiz team can help you and how we can make you one of those successful students who can probably be interviewed on the same YouTube channel after like 2 months, 3 months, 1 month, who knows what, please feel free to reach out to us. I'm more than happy to take up your questions and I'm more than happy to help you prepare your strategy for that. All right, so that was a quick intro about GMATWhiz. I'll just summarize the discussion that we had today. Again, we'll have another session on Quant, as I said, the next week. So very quickly, be prepared and confident. This helps you control your anxiety better because if you're not prepared, if you're not confident, doesn't matter how many these like sessions you attend, doesn't matter how many 760 scorers or 750 or 770 or even 800 scorers you speak to, you will not be able to control that anxiety. The main thing is to be prepared and confident. Then this basically helps Saquib in focusing on questions and calmly because he knew that he will get it right. He knew which questions he can get right, which ones he don't. And obviously, you need to be well prepared. So if you are only getting 20% of the questions right, 50% of the questions right, you can't expect to do that. So he prepared himself to an extent where he can get about 90% plus questions correct. So definitely you have to be well prepared. In verbal, 7 mistakes he made, out of which three he more or less knew that he couldn't get right, and those were like the script questions or guessed questions. I have written script, but I didn't mean kind of guessed
Mark,
basically.
something which I felt was the best, could be the best answer.
Exactly, exactly. And in part, he only made 1 mistake. That is testament to the fact that being prepared and like helps you in getting the right score. understand the test and understand how much accuracy is required. We wanted to talk about this today itself, but we'll talk about the accuracy angle also in the next class. This helps you in staying focused. So as Shakib was telling that in our SC, he knew that he's skipping a few questions. But he knew that skipping a few questions, how many questions he skip and it will still not hurt him, basically. So that understanding always helps, and we'll discuss in that later on. Don't guess questions right away, and be aware of your strong and weak areas. And GMATWhiz material and official questions are sufficient for your work. You don't need to do LSAT passages. You don't need to do overly complex passages. It is more about using the questions smartly. Obviously, if you have not used this material smartly, you might have to refer to something else, which we also recommend. But right now, you don't have to. And save time on easy questions and devote additional time on hard ones. All right. So that's about it from our side for today. We'll have another discussion on common questions, other strategies, and quant in the next, most likely Wednesday same time. So do subscribe to our channel and give this video a thumbs up, like if you really like this, and feel free to reach out to us on the details that we have shown in chat here. So finally, thank you so much, Saquib, for taking out your time. We are gonna disturb you again on next week same
Sure,
time,
sure, no
but
problem.
let's talk about like more things next week. All right.
Sure.
All right. All the best, guys. We'll take up your questions. If you have any other questions about this session, please send us an email to this email ID or my WhatsApp number. I'm more than happy to take it up for you. Thank you, guys. Bye.
Have a great day. Bye.